Hey everybody, it's Scott Shetler and welcome to this week's episode of Strength and Health TV. Today the topic that I want to get into is probably one of the biggest things that I've had to discuss and talk about with clients, friends, family members ever since I went vegan, started eating a plant-based diet. So today we're going to talk about protein and supplements while following a plant-based diet. And I want to preface this by saying I'm not a doctor. I'm not a registered dietitian. Everything that I'm sharing with you are things that I've learned experientially, things that I've discovered on my own through talking with dietitians, through doing my own research, and these are the conclusions that I've come to for where I'm at for this point in time. So by no means is this a be-all, end-all on protein and supplements for vegans or people who follow plant-based diets. I'm just sharing my experience, some of the things that I learned, and hopefully this, if you follow a plant-based diet or if you're vegan or if you're interested, if you're veg curious or whatever, hopefully this will motivate you to go do a little bit of research on your own, talk to some people, and maybe, get a little bit more deeply into these topics for yourself so that you can get yourself on the most optimal plant-based diet for you and for your athletic level. So I want to start first by talking about that age-old question, where do you get your protein? You eat plants, where do you get your protein? And that's probably the biggest question, and I think that the reason it is such a big deal is because we've come to look at our food as macronutrients. We typically think about that plate that's got the portion of protein, the portion of carbohydrate, the portion of vegetables, and then the things that get added in there, the fats and the oils and such like that. So we look at proteins, carbs, and fats. We often don't look at micronutrients, but one of the important things I think to consider if you're following a plant-based diet is that you don't look at your food as individual macronutrients. Look at your food in that the food that you eat, if you follow a whole food plant-based diet, contains all the macronutrients. So everything you're eating has some protein and amino acids. It's got carbohydrates, it's got fiber, it's got essential fats. It's got plenty of the vitamins, minerals, enzymes, and phytonutrients and phytochemicals that plant-based foods have. So I think it's a bit of a mistake to look at your food as isolating those macronutrients. One of the biggest things that I typically hear is, oh well, you're vegan, all you got to do is drink a bunch of protein and you're fine. And you don't need to supplement with a protein supplement. There's nothing wrong with that, and I do, and I'll talk about why I do and why you don't need to. And it's totally up to you based on what you're getting through your diet. But consider this: my friend and client that I trained a while back, Stic.man of Dead Prez. You can read all about this in the book that we co-authored with his wife Afia, Eat Plants, Lift Iron. Stic was able to build 20 pounds of mass following a 100% plant-based diet with no supplements, no protein supplements, no pills, no powders, nothing. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that he accomplished that without the aid of any supplements, just following a whole food plant-based diet. And the key there is whole foods. He ate a wide variety of whole foods that contain all those macronutrients, all those micronutrients that I just talked about. Now, are you going to eat like that? Are you going to eat a ton of different foods to make sure you're getting those broad spectrum of nutrients? That's on you. And if you don't, there certainly may be a case there to add some supplements to your diet. Keep in mind, there are plenty of vegan athletes out there that excel in their given sports, that dominate their sports, that do really well. Athletes from strength sports all the way to endurance sports, extreme endurance sports, and everything in between. There's NFL players, there's mixed martial artists, there's strongmen, there's powerlifters, there's plenty of bodybuilders. Go to plantbuilt.com and you'll see plenty of bodybuilders and strength athletes who follow a 100% vegan diet. Strongman Patrick Baboumian is a vegan. There's tons of endurance athletes. Think of Brendan Brazier, Rich Roll, who are both mega endurance athletes. Matt Frazier, who does marathons and ultras. There are plenty of athletes out there, like I said, from the spectrum of power and strength sports all the way to endurance sports and everything in between that follow a vegan diet. So it is possible to excel in athletics at really high levels following a vegan diet, and they're getting all the protein that they need. I think one of the things that comes up a lot is this concept of complete protein. And there's an article in a book that I published called Plant-Based Performance, Know Your Own Strength, in which a registered dietitian, a friend of mine, Matt Rusigno, who's also an ethical vegan, also a little plug for him, check out strongesthearts.org. It's a fantastic video series that they've done on vegan athletes that he and his partner Sasha have put together. But anyway, back to the protein here. This idea of complete protein, in this article that Matt wrote for the book, he says it's misleading. It assumes that we eat only one source of protein. And the fact of the matter is that nobody eats like that. We typically eat a wide variety of foods, most of which contain protein. So at no point are we just relying on one food as a protein source. So this whole idea of a complete protein, again, he says it's misleading. If you're eating a wide variety of whole foods and you're eating enough calorically to fuel your activity level, Matt goes on to say that your protein requirements will be met through that whole food diet as long as you're eating enough calorically to fuel your activity level. When, going back to this whole complete protein thing, you often hear, particularly if you're going to go into a vegetarian or vegan diet, you always hear combine beans and rice to get a complete protein. And again, Matt says that's a bit misleading. Basically, the way our body works is our body pools amino acids, all right? So it's not necessary to combine beans and rice. You could eat beans at lunch and you could eat rice at dinner, and your body will take the amino acids from those foods and pool it. Then, as your body needs those amino acids, it uses them. So regardless of their perceived completeness of source, your body just pulls all these amino acids from the wide variety of food that you're eating, and then as your body needs those amino acids, it uses them. So it doesn't matter if you're eating them together or separately. So again, that whole idea of a complete protein is totally misleading. I just can't reiterate enough, a whole food plant-based diet provides all the protein that you would need, again, as Matt stated in his article, as long as you're eating enough to fuel your activity level. So if you're a strength athlete, just make sure you're eating enough calorically to fuel your workouts, or if you're an endurance athlete and so forth. And if you do, and it's from a wide variety of whole plant-based foods, you should be getting enough protein. Just to give you an idea, I'm not a big tracker of macronutrients, which I know is just totally the rage right now. But for about 3 or 4 days, I went ahead and I tracked my diet, which is not always optimal. It's a little less than stellar at times. But I went ahead and I tracked my diet just to see, where I was getting at. Now, keep in mind, I'm working off the recommendation that a strength training athlete or a strength training individual, I often don't consider myself an athlete by any means, but I do enjoy strength training. That's my activity of choice. And the research that I came across indicates that for somebody who's doing hard strength training, and I train heavy about 4 times a week, for somebody who's strength training hard in the gym, you should consume somewhere in the ballpark of about 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, after tracking all my macros on about 3 or 4 days, what I found was on the days that I wasn't consuming any supplemental proteins, no protein powder, just strictly eating whole foods, I was exceeding the 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, and I was coming close to the 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. Now, like I said earlier, I do use a protein supplement. Typically, it's only once a day. It's usually on training days after I work out. I throw a scoop of whatever plant-based protein powder I have. I've used Vega. Plant Fusion is one of my favorites. I like Warrior Force or Health Force. And I've found that Sprouts Farmers Market has a great vegan protein, and it's a blended protein source. So it's got protein from it's got I think it's got chia seed, it's got pea, it's got hemp, it's got brown rice. So it's got protein from a bunch of different plant-based sources, much like the Vega and Plant Fusion products are blends as well. I use usually 1 scoop per day. It's usually mixed with some almond milk or some non-dairy milk, a couple cups of that, shake it up, drink it down after I train, and that's my post-workout recovery. So only on training days do I typically use a supplemental protein source, and that accounts for an additional 20 to maybe 30 grams of protein. So even when I wasn't using the supplemental protein, I was exceeding the 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, and I was coming pretty darn close to the 1.5. grams per kilogram of body weight. Using the supplemental protein made it super easy. I hit the 1.5 grams per kilo, so I was hitting the upper end of the recommended range for strength training individuals. So like I said, eating a wide variety of plant-based foods, whole foods, and maybe using a protein supplement occasionally, and you will get all the protein that you need. You know, I even found that I'm a big green smoothie guy. I love green smoothies. Even in the green smoothie that I make, like the one I had today, 2 cups of water, about a cup or so of strawberries, 1 banana, a few tablespoons, about 3 tablespoons of shelled hemp seeds, and 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds, and then about 5 fistfuls or so of greens. I really don't measure much. I just grab a few, you know, fistfuls and throw it in there. But I had about 4 or 5 fistfuls of greens. Right there, even without any protein powder or anything in that, that's got about 15 grams of protein. So you've got to consider that all these whole foods you're eating provide some protein at some level. So by taking a day or two and just kind of tracking the food that you're eating and seeing, you know, what has protein in higher amounts and what doesn't, it's usually, you'll be surprised at how easy it is to hit your protein requirements. And then if you're following a vegan diet and you throw in foods that do have a little bit higher concentration of protein, things like beans and legumes, which typically I think for a cup have right around 20 grams, give or take. You got tempeh and tofu. Some of the veggie burgers, like the Beyond Meat Beast burgers, which are amazing, have about 23 grams of protein per patty, and I believe pea protein is the source of the protein in those. So even with some of these processed vegan foods, which I wouldn't recommend living off of, but make great additions to a plant-based diet, it's so easy to get your protein requirements met. So just keep that in mind. This whole where do you get your protein, you know, if you're eating plants, it gets a little bit ridiculous, and it shows that people are pretty uneducated. And it's just kind of funny when you think about how paranoid people are of protein deficiency. You know, if skinny old me can get all the protein that I need from plants, you know, think about people that do eat an omnivorous diet and the amounts of meat, usually crappy meat, that people eat on a daily basis, how much protein that they've got to be getting. You know, if I can eat whole plant-based foods and eat enough calorically to fuel my activity and get all the protein that I need for that, people that are following the standard American diet and getting well in excess of the calories that they need, nobody's protein deficient. So if you're eating enough calories to sustain your daily activity, you're not protein deficient. And I know the protein supplement manufacturers probably don't want you to know that, because protein is such the buzzword, and you know, they want you to think that you need 2, 3, 4 grams per pound of body weight. It's totally ridiculous. I guess maybe if you throw anabolics in the mix, like maybe a pro bodybuilder or somebody like that is going to have a little bit higher, they're going to be able to take in a little bit more, or probably a lot more protein than somebody who doesn't use anabolics. But still, protein is such the buzzword nowadays, and I really don't think that anybody's running around protein deficient if you're eating enough calorically to sustain yourself and your activity. So that kind of wraps up the protein chat for today. And again, hopefully it'll get you to think about, you know, what you're eating and where you're getting protein from, and hopefully you realize that if you do want to jump into a plant-based or a vegan diet, it's really not that hard to meet your protein requirements at all. Let's talk a little bit about supplements, because supplements are, you know, a multi-billion-dollar industry, and are they really needed? I know some of my friends who are bodybuilders, powerlifters, you know, whatever, they take a lot of supplements. I also know people who use very little, if any, supplements. So as I've done my nutrition over the last few years, shifting from a vegetarian to a totally vegan diet, I've experimented with different things, and I found that I really don't need a lot of supplements in my diet. The first one that I do want to talk about, I believe that everybody who's vegan or even vegetarian, and even some omnivores have an issue with it, is B12. You know, just take the supplement. I mean, it's really not that tough. It's an inexpensive supplement. You only need about 2.5 micrograms a day. Of course, that changes based on your weight, but that's usually a good starting point. That's not a lot. You can usually buy 1,000 microgram tablets, I think, for like $10 and get like a 300-day supply. I mean, it's a really cheap supplement. It's just so easy to do, and it just ensures that you're getting B12. If you're eating a totally plant-based diet, you're not getting B12 from plants. If you are an omnivore, or you're even a vegetarian who does eat things like eggs and dairy, you're probably getting enough B12, but there are also other factors that may inhibit your body's ability to absorb B12. I know plenty of omnivores who go to their doctor and find that they're exhibiting symptoms of low B12, like low energy and things like that. And they go and they find out that even though they're eating animal-based foods, their B12 levels are low, and they often have to get a shot or get onto a supplement regimen as well. So just because you're eating animal-based foods doesn't mean your body's absorbing it. So it is something to be aware of, because B12 deficiency can be really, really bad news. So in a nutshell, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, just take the damn supplement. It's really not that big of a deal if you get a little bit more. I believe it's a water-soluble supplement, so you'll just pee out, whatever your body's not using. It's not that big of a deal. It's very easy to do. So I do take a B12 tablet every day, and every time I've had a physical, B12 has never been an issue. One of the other things that I've come across in doing a little bit of research and whatnot, and I know people argue about fat all the time. Do we need a lot of healthy fat in the diet? Do we need to follow a low-fat diet? And it's a big debate. There are essential fats that the body needs. What doses? I don't know. There's a lot of research that indicates maybe people who are training hard, strength training athletes, can benefit from a little bit more essential fat in the diet. I know health professionals who say low fat's the way to go. I'm not a pro. I'm not going to argue about it. I take a little bit of supplemental fat in my diet. I make sure I get a lot of flax seeds or a ground flax meal. I eat chia seeds, which are high in omega-3s. I eat plenty of nuts and seeds. But one of the big ones that pops up when you start talking about a vegan diet is the omega-3 supplement EPA and DHA. Now, those are typically found in fish. So obviously, if you're a vegan, you're not getting that in your diet. The easiest thing to do to ensure that you're getting enough EPA and DHA in your diet is to take a vegan EPA DHA supplement. It's typically sourced from algae. It's not really expensive. It's something that you can add into your diet easy, again, just to make sure your bases are covered. I don't think you need a ton of fat in your diet. You don't need to take 6 tablespoons of coconut oil a day, but you do need a certain amount of healthy fat in your diet. I'm not here to say who needs what amount, but you definitely do need some essential fats in your diet. So including high fatty sources of food, like things like avocado, nuts, seeds, is always a good idea. I don't think you need to eat a ton of it. Making sure you're maybe getting some flax seeds or things like that, which also have the benefit of fiber and such, chia seeds, things of that nature, and making sure you take an EPA and DHA supplement just to ensure that you are getting those important omega-3s is probably a good idea. Again, I'm not here to say what you should or shouldn't do. This is the research that I've come across. This is the stuff that makes sense to me, and it's something easy to do to fill in the holes or possible holes in my nutrition program. When I was researching protein on a vegan diet, one of the things that kept popping up was the amino acid lysine. Apparently, lysine is pretty tough to get in the proper amounts if you're eating a vegan diet, particularly if you're not eating a caloric surplus as somebody who's training really hard would. If you're a sedentary individual, just eating a plant-based diet, chances are you're not getting enough lysine in your diet. According to veganhealth.org, the recommended amount of lysine, the amino acid lysine, to get in your diet is about 38 milligrams per kilogram of healthy body weight. So I would take healthy body weight to mean the amount of lean tissue. So if you do a body composition test and find out what your body fat percentage is, the percentage of your body that is not fat is what you're going to base that requirement off of. So 38 milligrams per kilogram of healthy body weight is how much lysine you need. And that's recommended, again, at veganhealth.org for people 18 years and older. Some really good sources of lysine are legumes, seitan, tofu, tempeh, quinoa, and pumpkin seeds. With that recommendation, basically what they said at veganhealth.org is that if you meet your lysine, your amino acid lysine requirements, you're probably meeting your protein requirements. So if you're getting enough lysine in your diet, you're definitely getting enough protein in your diet. Also, I think it's important to mention that just one scoop of the plant-based protein powder that I use has 1,400 milligrams. So if you do supplement with a little bit of protein plus eat a little bit more protein-dense plant-based foods, things like legumes, seitan, tofu, and tempeh, you're probably gonna meet those lysine requirements easily. But remember, it's 38 milligrams per kilogram of healthy body weight if you want to find out about exactly how much lysine you need to be taking on a daily basis. again, it's something that you can get from whole food, so I recommend trying to get it from whole food first and foremost before you start looking at supplements. But if you need to take a scoop of protein powder every day to help meet those requirements, why not? It's something easy to do, and as long as you're not living off like 12 protein drinks a day, I think you're going to be okay supplementing with 1 or 2 here or there. But again, in my opinion, to be strong, to be healthy, your focus should always be on whole foods first, and then look at if you need to supplement protein, if you need to supplement, any vitamins or minerals. But again, the big supplements that I came across were B12, the important omega-3 fatty acids, EPA, DHA, and then the amino acid lysine. So those are the biggest things that have kind of jumped out at me as I've been doing my research over the last few years, talking to various people and whatnot. So again, it's really not difficult to hit those protein requirements, to hit the macronutrients, micronutrients, everything that the body needs on a plant-based diet. And as long as you add in the necessary supplements where they need to be added in, you can be totally healthy. You can accomplish all your strength goals, all your athletic goals, all your health goals, eating a plant-based diet. Plus you get the benefit of having all that fiber, all those phytonutrients, all those phytochemicals, and all those micronutrients that you get typically so plentiful in plant-based foods. So that's about it for this episode today. I hope this might have given you some tips or some ideas, especially for those of you who are veg curious. You're thinking about if it's too difficult to make that jump full on and going 100% plant-based. It really isn't. It's very easy to do. It did take me a little while to transition into a vegan diet myself, but looking back, like I said, in hindsight, it really wasn't that tough. Just make sure you do a little bit of research, educate yourself. Don't set yourself up for failure. The more you know going into it, the easier it is. And if anything, I really think by going vegan, it's really opened me up to a wide variety of foods I never would have experimented with before. All these awesome exotic fruits, different types of vegetables and things like that. It's been pretty awesome. And as I said, my health has made a dramatic transformation ever since going plant-based. So again, hopefully you found some good bits of information in this episode. I hope you're enjoying the episodes so far. I think this is like week 5 now. So looking forward to pumping these out about once a week. Hopefully I'm covering topics that you like. If there's something that you want me to cover or something that you want me to address, if it's something that I'm comfortable talking about, or if it's something that I've got experience with, I'll be more than happy to do it. You can either email me at scott@extreme-fitness.org. I'll also put my email down in the notes below this video, or you can even leave a comment below the video with some topic recommendations or just giving me some feedback about these shows. So again, hopefully you're enjoying the show so far. Look forward to keeping these coming out about every week, and until next week, stay strong and stay healthy.